My name is Ronald Browder, and I am the president of the Ohio Federation for Health Equity and Social Justice. Also with me is Dr. Ollie Jones, president of the Ohio Grandparent and Kinship Coalition. We welcome you to this National Town Hall meeting today entitled Family Connections. While the term kinship care may not be familiar to you, the practice is long and well established. Kinship includes grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, siblings, and even friends and neighbors who step forward to care for their children when their biological parents are unable for any number of reasons. This town hall has been made possible through the collaboration of organizations from over 43 plus states and the District of Columbia, who have come together to bring attention to the issues, needs, and concerns kin families face. These organizations are involved in every aspect of kinship care, including advocacy, professional services, and family peer support.
At the end of this program today, you will hear about an exciting new initiative that our coalition will be announcing to provide information on kinship care on a state-by-state basis. Our hope is that for those who are caregivers, you will hear more validation of the important work that you do to provide love, stability for the children in your care. For agencies personnel, you will hear from others who, like you, are working every day to support families to help children succeed and thrive. We are privileged that we will hear from an official from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and federal legislation who are working at the national level to promote services to families. Finally, we want to thank all our sponsors, especially the Startup Dust Fund, the Dave Tile Foundation for Adoption, and the Health Path Foundation of Ohio for their support.
Good afternoon. My name is Anna Beltran, and I'm the director of Generations United's new Grand Families and Kinship Support Network, a national technical assistance center. We're the first federally supported technical assistance center on the families, and we run this network through a cooperative agreement with the Administration for Community Living at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It is such a pleasure to be with all of you today as we work to better support grandparents, other relatives, close family friends, and the children they raise. It is my honor today to introduce Assistant Secretary of the Administration for Children and Families, known as ACF, at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, January Contreras. Assistant Secretary Contreras leads ACF's 1,500 employees in partnership with state, tribal, territorial, and local governments and a diverse network of nonprofit and philanthropic organizations. Together, they strive to strengthen the well-being of the nation's children and families. Throughout her impressive career spanning more than 20 years, Assistant Secretary Contreras has been motivated by a sense of duty to children and families, especially when they're facing their most difficult moments. Prior to leading ACF, Assistant Secretary Contreras led a legal aid center focused on children and young adults. She also served in the Obama-Biden administration, working to ensure immigrant victims of domestic violence and other crimes are treated with the same dignity and protection all victims of crime deserve. In addition to her national leadership, Assistant Secretary Contreras is proud of her Arizona roots. After obtaining both her undergraduate and legal degrees from the University of Arizona, she went on to serve as a deputy county attorney and assistant attorney general. She took on other important Arizona leadership roles, including overseeing the Arizona Department of Human Services. Assistant Secretary Contreras and her husband of 28 years are the grateful parents of 2 adult sons. She brings all this rich and professional experience to us today, and it is my privilege to turn over the program to her. Assistant Secretary January Contreras.
Good afternoon. I'm January Contreras, and I have the privilege of serving as the Assistant Secretary for the Administration for Children and Families at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you so much to the Ohio Federation for Health Equity and Social Justice and the Ohio Grandparent and Kinship Care Coalition Incorporated. Thank you for the invitation to join you today. It brings me great joy to join this community of advocates and leaders in your own families and in your communities. Today, I'm honored to celebrate and show heartfelt appreciation for all that kinship caregivers do to help children thrive every day. The importance of relatives and close family friends for the ability for children to thrive cannot be understated. When parents are not able to keep their children safely at home, it is often those kin relationships that serve as the safety net for children's immediate need for love and for a safe space. Nearly 3 million children in the United States are currently being raised in kinship care, with nearly 2/3 of them by grandparents. These can range from short-term informal arrangements to formal permanent placements. 34% of children in foster care are living with relatives. Now, we all know that in this space today. I myself come from a large, pretty traditional Mexican-American family where we have stepped in to help one another through rough waters at different times in one another's lives. We've carried each other, and we've been fortunate to come out on the other side, ready to move forward. When my mom worked nights at the post office, I stayed with my grandparents. I watched Mexican soap operas with my nana. I watched Lawrence Welk with my tata, and my bond with them never faltered. And I do continue to feel their presence from up above every single day. So I honor them as I honor all the grandparents and kinship caregivers joining us today. Of course, many kinship caregivers step in under very difficult and traumatic circumstances. But the research does give us a simple answer. Children do best when placed with kin. Kinship care minimizes trauma, preserves cultural identity, it increases placement stability, it improves behavioral outcomes, and it promotes sibling ties. All very important goals that we need for kids to do their best. Kinship care can reduce the impact of trauma that children may have previously experienced and the trauma that accompanies parental separation by providing them with a sense of stability and belonging in an otherwise unsettling time. It's important, however, to also recognize that kinship caregivers face unique challenges in caring for children, such as being able to meet licensing requirements when child welfare is involved. Children can be placed with little notice, resulting in financial strain and an immediate need for child care to avoid disrupting employment and meeting the family's mental and behavioral health needs. We know that at the Administration for Children and Families. There can also be the uncomfortable navigation of providing equal support to parents and the relatives caring for their children. Kinship caregivers need financial assistance and related public benefits, case management, legal assistance, support groups, respite care, mental health counseling and treatment, and kinship-specific training. At ACF, we have placed a very high priority on kinship care, and we're working with states to really live that priority out. Congress, through their bipartisan wisdom, passed the Family First Act, also placing a high priority on kinship care. So for us to move towards a kin-first culture, the child welfare system seeks to provide kinship families with ample support, and we want to remove those inequitable barriers to licensing and allow for flexible licensing standards for kinship families. That is a goal that we have at ACF. Currently, Title IV-E Prevention Services allows the option of waiving non-safety related licensing standards for relatives on a case-by-case basis. My team shares that for fiscal year 2021, states and tribes drew down a lot of money under the Title IV-E Kinship Guardian Assistance Program. We also provided funding for Kinship Navigator programs for fiscal year 2022. The investments are heavy, $250 million and more, because we're recognizing that kinship care is what will help children most succeed and be loved and cared for and have stability that we know is good for them. In addition to that funding, which comes from ACF, the Children's Bureau at ACF develops and collects and shares resources and promising practices that are designed to promote kinship care and to support kinship care givers. We are putting out publications that are talking about kinship care in the child welfare system, about the Kinship Navigator program grants so that more states can take advantage of this. We're working with courts, attorneys, putting measures in place, all with a focus on promoting kinship care. A special kinship assessment protocol called Promising Practice, developed by Arlington County, Virginia, that considers kin-specific concerns, is another best practice that ACF has highlighted. Rather than focusing solely on the number of bedrooms or bathrooms in a home, the assessment considers configuration of the household, caregiver motivations, family relationships, and a caregiver's ability to set healthy emotional boundaries with the birth parents, the child entering out-of-home care, and their extended family members. Through creating a kin-first culture, we have a resource on how to lead with the kin-first philosophy. Again, promoting this as a value that we want the child welfare system to adopt throughout the country. And of course, through your efforts and others, there have been states that have really taken big strides ahead in terms of making financial support and addressing those licensing standard inequities to promote kinship caregivers in their states. We continue to be a partner with you in that. We want to, with you, create a sense of urgency for making the first placement, the preferred placement, a kin placement, to make licensing kin a priority, to support families for children, and to create a strong community, a network to support kin families. So I know that is what you do. We are a partner to you in that work. We ask you to continue to advocate and hold us accountable in our work, and we hope you see those results coming out. Across the country, a child's ability to rebound from a traumatic experience is dependent on the swift, loving, and unwavering support from a kinship caregiver, from their family, from those who love them. We at ACF thank you for the countless acts of wisdom, cultural preservation, stability, and outpouring of love that you give to children in your care every single day. Again, I'm honored to be here with you today. I thank you for all that you do in your own homes and in our community, and I look forward to continuing to work alongside each of you. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Janet Salo, a Kinship Navigator with Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. I'd like to introduce our U.S. Senator Sherrod Brown, who has spent his career fighting for the dignity of work, the idea that hard work should pay off for everyone, no matter who you are, where you are, or what kind of work you do. He's held nearly 500 roundtables across Ohio because he believes the best ideas don't come out of Washington. They come from conversations with Ohioans. Senator Brown serves as chairman of the Senate Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs Committee. He also serves on the Finance Committee, Agriculture Committee, and is the longest Ohioan on the Veterans Affairs Committee. Sherrod was born and raised in Mansfield, Ohio, where he earned his Eagle Scout Award and spent summers working on his family's farm. He's married to author and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Connie Schultz. They live in Cleveland, Ohio, with their rescue dogs, Franklin and Walter, drive Jeeps made by union workers in Toledo, and have 3 daughters, a son, a daughter-in-law, 3 son-in-laws, and 8 grandchildren. Also, Representative Danny K. Davis was chosen by the people of the 7th Congressional District of Illinois as their representative in Congress on November 5, 1996. He has been reelected by large majorities to succeeding Congresses. In the 117th Congress, Representative Davis has been reappointed to the Committee on Ways and Means and is the chairman of the Worker and Family Support Committee. We also have Representative Ayanna Presley. She is an advocate, policymaker, and advocate and survivor. On November 6, 2018, Congresswoman Presley was elected to represent Massachusetts' 7th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, making her the first woman of color to be elected to Congress from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The Massachusetts 7th is the most diverse, most unequal district in the state, requiring a representative whose experiences are reflective of the people.
I'm Sherrod Brown. It's a privilege to serve Ohio, our great state, in the United States Senate. Thanks to my friend Barbara Turpin. We've worked together for years, and everyone with the Grandparent and Kinship Care Coalition for your work on behalf of kinship caregivers. Thank you to all the caregivers who are dedicated to caring for and supporting the children in their lives. We know the pandemic made the challenges that parents and grandparents and children were already facing, those challenges even harder. The addiction crisis has overloaded the foster care system. It's required grandparents and other relatives to step up and raise children. I hear from kinship care advocates and educators and community leaders about the challenges you face and about the support you need from us. We passed the expanded child tax credit, the largest tax cut ever for working families, with support for kinship caregivers, children and young people in foster care. We must continue that work to extend that expansion. We passed provisions for my Child Welfare Emergency Act, a bill I worked on with some of you to provide emergency aid to kinship caregivers in Ohio. And we just passed the Inflation Reduction Act to bring down costs, to put families first, to make sure your hard work as caregivers pays off. Whether you're raising children yourselves or working with families, you all advocate for these kids who need someone who loves them in their corner, giving them a voice. That's what you do. For that, all of us in this state should be grateful. Thanks so much.
Hello, I'm U.S. Representative Danny Davis, and I'm pleased to chair the subcommittee on worker and family support in the Committee on Ways and Means. And much of our work is centered around the needs of children and how to protect and promote their well-being. I represent the 7th Congressional District of Illinois, which encompasses parts of Chicago and its western suburbs, inner city Chicago, west and south sides of Chicago, where many low-income African American and other people of color live. In the United States, there are more than 6 million children who live with grandparents or other relatives. Many of these individuals are females under age 60, and we are taking care of these children, many of them on a long-term basis. We're very fortunate in the community where I live because there are social workers like Dr. Annetta Wilson, who served as chair of the 7th Congressional District Social Welfare Task Force and leads a national child welfare brain trust. There are indeed state resources and philanthropic as well as federal resources to support the efforts of child welfare workers. But as usual, they're never enough. And the advocacy is always needed. Illinois has a family caregiver support program for grandparents and older relatives over the age of 55 who are raising grandchildren. And children are also eligible for these services. In Illinois, there are 220,088 children under the age of 18 who are living in a grandparent-headed household. More than 100,000 grandparents are caring for their grandchildren. My district has the highest percentage of children living with grandparents in the nation, certainly the highest in the state of Illinois. We are fortunate because we have so many grandparents who are seriously caring for their grandchildren and other relatives who constitute a part of what is called kinship care. There are many who believe that these families are able to just take up the slack of what society is not doing. But I can tell you there is indeed, and there are needs going unmet. So I am hoping that as a result of the advocacy of which many of you and all of us are a part, will help to generate the kind of resources and services needed to take care of the most vulnerable members of our society. Young people who are living with someone other than their natural parents. I thank you for your involvement, your engagement, and your participation. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to address this incredible national convening of kinship caregivers, dedicated to building healthy communities for every family model. I want to thank Lynn Geerton from the Massachusetts Commission on Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. Thank you, Lynn, for your sweat equity on behalf of families across the Commonwealth, what you do every day. Thank you for your partnership and for being one of my teachers in this work. I also want to express my immense gratitude to the Ohio Federation for Health Equity and Social Justice and the Ohio Grandparent and Kinship Coalition for connecting incredible leaders like Lynn from around the country to share their expertise and to fight for lasting policy change. Responsive policy that meets the needs of our grand families. So often when we talk about our young people, we'll credit our education system as being the great equalizer. There certainly is merit to that. I, however, like to argue that in addition to education being the great equalizer, it is our families that are life's great stabilizer. And this is especially true for our children. The best gift that we can give any child is a stable adult. And we know because of many growing challenges from poverty to food insecurity, a global pandemic, pandemic-induced recession, mass incarceration, substance use disorder, we have seen the grand family model quadruple in recent years. Grandparents who thought raising their children, being parents was long in the back view and behind them, who have stood up and stood in the gap to meet the needs of their grandchildren in the face of their parents facing challenging circumstances, preventing them from providing adequate and sufficient care. And so our grandparents have stood up and stood in the gap. Despite them meeting the moment time and time again, our policies have failed to meet the moment and to keep pace with the leadership demonstrated by our grandparents. And so we must do better. We need policies that recognize the unique challenges that grandparents face in providing that care. And your voices are essential in our crafting legislation to ensure that we are doing exactly that. Your voices are an essential part of our work to secure the resources and education at the federal, state, and local level that our grandfamilies deserve for their well-being, as well as for their dependents' future. We know that when children cannot remain with their parents, being in the care of a loving family member can help address the trauma of separation and provide much needed support and raising firmness as well. Providing structure, stability, medical, psychological care, navigating social lives, school requirements, and other activities are all important nurturing tasks done by you. Without you, they would not have that foundation that will quite literally determine the trajectory of their lives. And so in all that you're doing, we have to be sure that we not forget about you. When we say it takes a village, we must recognize your contributions of raising your grandchildren and providing them with the resources and support that they need. Every child deserves a stable environment, one that they can grow and thrive in. And that is why I'm so proud to have introduced the Grand Family Housing Act. This is work that I started doing in advocacy in my 8-year tenure on the Boston City Council. And now that I'm serving on the congressional level, to be able to address these issues systemically in the macro means everything. And I'm so grateful for the partnership of my dear friend, Jim McGovern, for taking this issue on with me. We know that we can provide grandparents with the housing resources that they need in order to meet the needs of their new and unexpected family makeup, while also providing wraparound supports for the complexities of raising a grandchild. The Grand Family Housing Act establishes a new nationwide pilot program to modify appropriate housing and to fund residential coordinators to help grandparents navigate the complexities of raising a grandchild, and to help you have safe living space and to build a stable environment for your grandchildren, and the finances, the upkeep of your housing and communal spaces. Our job as your federal legislators is to make sure that you are also experiencing that joy and that you too are being prioritized so that you can live with the grace and dignity that you deserve while serving your grand families. I am truly in awe of the strength and love that you exhibit every day, being these critical supports for your grandchildren. Again, when you thought that parenting was very much in the rear view, I admire you tremendously, and certainly you are needed and important. Our legislation is a critical step towards building equity and fairness in our housing stock, but it does not end there for our grand families. I look forward to community-informed legislative solutions that will come out of this national convening. Look forward to what will be proposed and advanced. And I look forward to being your partner in sustainable policy change that centers our families and the support they need to build healthy futures. The Grand Family Housing Act. Help is on the way.
Hi, my name is Kim Clifton, and I'm the Executive Director of HALOS. HALOS is a nonprofit organization based in Charleston, South Carolina. We provide services to kinship families in our community. Today, it is my privilege to introduce Congresswoman Joyce Beatty. Congresswoman Beatty is a native Ohioan with a strong history of connecting people, policy, and politics to make a difference. Since 2013, Beatty has proudly represented Ohio's 3rd Congressional District. In the 117th Congress, Beatty serves as chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congresswoman Beatty serves on the exclusive House Committee on Financial Services as chair of the Subcommittee on Diversity and Inclusion, and is also a member of the Housing, Community Development, and Insurance Subcommittees. The Financial Services Committee oversees the entire financial services industry, including the nation's banking, securities, insurance, and housing industries, as well as the work of the Federal Reserve, the United States Department of the Treasury, and the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. She also serves on the Joint Economic Committee, which examines economic conditions and policy. Congresswoman Beatty was a loving, devoted wife and partner to attorney Otto Beatty Jr. until his death in 2021, and she is a proud grandmother to Leah and Spencer, who lovingly call her Grammy. Please join me in welcoming Congresswoman Joyce Beatty.
Hi, I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, chair of the Congressional Black Caucus and proud representative of Ohio's 3rd Congressional District. Welcome to the Family Connections National Kinship Virtual Town Hall. Thank you to the Ohio Grandparents Kinship Coalition for inviting me, and for all you do to advocate for and support kinship caregivers. We are all here today because we care about one thing above all else: the welfare and safety of children in this country. Nationwide, there are nearly 3 million children being raised by kinship caregivers, the vast majority of whom are the child's grandparents. These children know firsthand the safety, security, and stability they receive by being placed with family members rather than a foster parent. By being raised by a family member, children remain rooted in their communities and connected to their closest advocates. So we in Congress must do everything we can to support and uplift the needs of kinship caregivers, particularly grandparents, who may not expect to take on the role of a primary caregiver to a child at this stage in their life, emotionally, physically, or even financially, if they are eager for the opportunity. Even if they are eager for the opportunity. We must also not forget that in most cases, a kinship caregiver is also close to the biological parent and coping with whatever crises brought the child into care. The good news is that I believe Congress has been thinking about kinship in the foster system more and more in recent years. I would say that it is one of the top two issues, along with helping children aging out of the foster system. The flagship piece of legislation is the Promoting Permanency Through Kinship Families Act from Congresswoman Karen Bass, who is the chair of the Congressional Caucus on Foster Care, Foster Youth. Her bill will require child welfare agencies to recruit relatives as foster parents and to more diligently search for kinship placement options at the onset. These are critical steps. All too often, foster parents have a child in their home for months. And just as the child's plan was changed to permanency, the agency found a relative who very much wanted to be a guardian or caregiver. And unfortunately, children miss out on irreplaceable bonding and attachment time with their relative. But beyond this important piece of legislation, which we wholeheartedly support, I want to thank you because I know you will see a movement coming forward to explicitly include kinship in eligibilities for other foster programs and not as an afterthought. So let me just say with great honor and pleasure, as a grandparent myself, I know I would do whatever it takes to help my grandbabies. And we need to make sure that every grandparent, every aunt, uncle, or sibling can do the same. And that's why I am a big supporter. So I say thank you for having me today and allowing me to be another voice for the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition. And just in case you didn't know, I'm Congresswoman Joyce Beatty, and I approve this message.
Well, my name is Renola Dunstan, and this is Veronica Brown. This is my grandchild. We've just been with the Children's Home Society Kinship Program for several years, and it's been a blessing because it allows me to be able to step up and help out with one of my family members.
My name is Edith Garcia, and I have a handsome little man named Jadiel, who is 9 years old, who is my world. He's my grandson. I would have never made it, seriously. Kinship stepped in and bang, helped me a lot.
They support us by, one, financially, another, resources, and then emotionally.
They said, and if you have any issues, any problems, call us or knock on the door. We're here anytime you need us.
We're not only just giving them resources, but sometimes we're just an ear to them. We're moral support to them because they don't feel heard, they don't feel supported, they don't feel like there's enough for them out there to rely on.
And it's just been very great to have them, as a partner, because that's how I look at them. They're like partners in helping me do what I'm trying to do.
They're great people. They're very open, and they really, really try to help you and understand.
I think that we're the ones who are blessed to come in contact with these selfless, very, very selfless people. They have impacted us more so than they can even imagine. They think that they're grateful for us, but we're equally grateful for them.
And just to think about all the children that they do take care of right now, they really need the funding as much as possible so they can continue to do the things that they're doing in the community on a greater scale.
I get emotional. I get emotional because when I thought I was losing it, these people came along and held my hand and said, "You're not by yourself. We're here to help you, and we are going to help you. So please help us continue to get this, because it's for our kids, for our future, because they are our future. And if we can't do for them, where's the world going to go? If we get the help, we continue to help these kids, and we keep them off the streets, and we keep them off the drugs, we keep them off of guns. We put them in the right path so they continue to be good people and grow up to be good people to help others like we got helped. Seriously.
Hello, everyone. It's good to see everyone this afternoon. We're here for the Kinship National Town Hall meeting, and we have a group of relative kinship caregivers with us today. They're representing different parts of the country in different states, and we're just going to have a conversation and share some thoughts and ideas so that our audience can get to hear a little bit directly from the caregivers, the people who are doing all the work. Just in case you're not sure, kinship families are a little different from foster care families in that they are relatives related to family or connected to the family in some way, and they've stepped up in lieu of foster care to be able to care for their children. I'm going to ask our panelists some questions, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves briefly and just to tell us who they are and what state they're from, how many children they have, how long they've had their children. So why don't we start with Terry? Terry, would you like to jump in and introduce yourself?
Yes, my name's Terry Santini. I live in Oregon. I have one child, my granddaughter, and I've had her for 6 years now.
Thank you. Titiana, why don't you go next?
Hey, sorry, Mr. Lawrence. My dryer in the back. I did not know it was going to go
okay.
on. Hey, you guys. My name is Titiana. Friends and family call me TT. I reside in North Carolina. I'm originally from New York. I have one child through kinship, and I have one child biologically. My brother, who I adopted, he's 8 years old, will be 9 in August. And my biological child just turned 3 in June.
Thank you, TT. Mr. Richardson, would you like to jump in?
Sure, be glad to. Yeah, I am Ray Richardson. We live in Chesterfield, Virginia, which is right next to Richmond, Virginia. And we have, as far as the kinship thing that goes, we have 2 grandchildren that we're raising. Lilia is when we got her, she was age 7, and now she's 18. Isaiah, when we got him, they're brother and sister, by the way. He was age 5, and now he's 16. So we've had them for 11 years and 2 months. Got them in June of 2011.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Ann, would you like to jump in, Dr. Ann?
Yes. My name is Ann Nichols. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. And I cared for a sibling set of 5 I'm trying to think how many years altogether. They were young teens, just the youngest was, I think, 12, and the oldest was 16 when I got them. And they were fictive kin, not biologically related to me. They were a family who had come here as political asylum seekers with only the father. The mother has died. And when he had difficulty, they needed to find care for them. And I knew the family because of the church that had resettled them, and I'd had interaction with them. And so at first I had the older 3, and another family took the younger ones. After a couple of years, I ended up with all of them. They're all young adults now. 4 of the 5 are married and have children, so I have 17 grandchildren. 4 from my own 3 biological children, 13 from my foster kids, and they all call me Nana.
Thank you, Anne.
Very good.
So, you mentioned fictive kin. What exactly is fictive kin and what does that mean?
Well, it's someone who has a relationship with children, maybe a teacher, a church member, a neighbor, sees that there's a problem, knows that there's not a family member to step in for whatever reason, and they would like to keep the child in the neighborhood, in the family. Maybe their children are good friends, or, I mean, there are lots of things that would lead to somebody to agree to take in children that they have no relationship to. But they know the child. It's not like being a licensed foster parent and wondering what kind of child you're going to get. You know the children, but you just are not biologically connected to them.
Thank you, Anne. I'm wondering if anyone would be able to or willing to share how they became a kinship caregiver, or how they got asked. Did you get a call? Was it something planned? Did the family meet? How did it come about? Would I be able to ask Mr. Richardson to speak to that a little?
Sure, I'll be glad to speak to that. Our oldest daughter married a much older gentleman, and he died, and our daughter, and they lived in Fredericksburg, Virginia. And after he died, she, as I would say, went off the rail. And basically, we were in touch with the social service system up there, and said that if anything ever happens, let us know. And so we were in touch constantly. And so after he passed, my daughter took off down to Florida and asked us to care for the kids until she called for them. And basically that call never happened. We had to go back up to Fredericksburg and go to the court system and get an emergency custody order. And we were granted both legal and physical custody. And we transferred them from the Fredericksburg system down to Chesterfield County. And that's kind of how it all began.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Titiana, can I ask you, how did you become a caregiver, and if it's okay, are you comfortable with sharing how old you were when you became a caregiver, and did it change your plans for what you were planning on doing right then?
Hey, yeah. So I must start from the beginning, right? So I was born in the foster care system because my mom was a pregnant teen who was in foster care in New York. She had me, and I automatically was placed in foster care. Fast forward, I'm living in North Carolina. I'm an adult in college. I give my mom, I guess, the opportunity to be a part of my life as an adult. And she comes, to my home and things like that. She winds up getting pregnant. She's still battling with substance use at this point. She's still battling with substance use. And she winds up getting pregnant. So here's my little brother. And, in North Carolina, they give you a couple of months. Might start off as 60 days, 90 day, 120-day plans on things that you should do in order to get your child. My mom never completed it. She left one day when he was 3 months. And I had him ever since. The adoption went through when he was about maybe 3 or 4 years old. And he'll be 9 in October. I was 20 years old, maybe 19 when he was born. And I was in college. I wasn't expecting to have him forever. Not even forever, but full custody because my mom, she made it seem like she was going to get herself together. And, she didn't follow through with the requirements to get her child. And I wound up having him completely.
You were pretty young. So, what gave you the motivation or courage to step up and assume that role for your brother?
Well, honestly, like I said, when I turned 19, I broke my car's agreement. A car's agreement is a agreement for people once you turn 18, if you want to stay in foster care. Like, as long as you're doing something like a trade, going to school, those type of things, you could still have like a place to go on the weekends, get a stipend, those types of things. So I broke my car's agreement. I had my own house, apartment, crib, whatever you guys want to call it. And I had my mother living with me. So in the hospital, they told her in order for her to keep her child, I had to be a part of the plan. She was living in my home. And of course, I didn't want no baby. I'm in college. I get all the new kicks. Like, when they come out, I can go party. And I put my name down because my mom was living with me, and she just didn't follow through. So it's not like I was like, oh, no, give him here. But I was trying to assist my mom, and she didn't do her part, which kind of threw everything on me. And I was like, you know what? I done grew attached to the baby. I grew up in foster care. I advocate for foster children, so I already know as a baby, like, he's first pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to take him. They're going to adopt him. He might move to Arizona, Virginia, who knows, or right across the street and still not have a relationship with us. The reason why I say that is I grew up in foster care. I've seen it happen. So at that point, I was already attached. And I'm like, dang, my mom not doing what she's supposed to do. So I just stepped up.
Thank you.
And
Thank you for sharing.
My hat's off to you.
Yes.
Thanks, y'all.
It's commendable. Terry, I want to give you a chance to jump in a little bit and talk about how you came to be into the kinship role that you're in now. Was that something that was planned?
Absolutely not. My plan was retirement and traveling.
And how's that plan going right now?
Well, today we are traveling. We're in Texas instead of Oregon, but that's for a whole nother reason. So my daughter was abused by the father of my granddaughter. And so I moved her back home. At that point, I found out she was pregnant because they had me take her to the hospital. They thought her jaw was broken. And on the way to go get x-rays, she's like, there's something I need to tell you. And I'm like, now? And she's like, yeah. And that's how I found out she was pregnant. So when my granddaughter was born, my daughter was connected with DHS because she wouldn't stay away from the father, the biological father, and he was deemed unsafe for the baby to be around. So Children's Services stepped in. She convinced them that she wasn't seeing him anymore. And of course they believed her, and so then they stepped back. And then there was a time she had her in the car, and he was in the car with her, and he got arrested at gunpoint. And so once the police report went across DHS's desk again, then they stepped back in. They had her go do a UA because there was a question on whether she was using or not. But it wasn't supervised, so of course it came back clean. And as things progressed, they told her that she had so many hours to do a supervised UA because things were not getting better, they were getting worse. And when they told her she needed to do a supervised UA, and if she refused, then they were taking my granddaughter, and if it came back dirty, they were still going to take my granddaughter. And so at that point, she left the house for a few hours, came back, and decided to sign over guardianship. So I went to the courthouse, got the paperwork, sat down at the table with her, filled it out, got it notarized, took it down to the courthouse, and at that point it was $100 to file for guardianship, and paid the $100, and it was signed. They called me when the paperwork was finalized. I went and picked it up because one of our fears is that she was going to come take her and run to Mexico with the father, with my granddaughter. And so the judge, they expedited the paperwork at the courthouse, so I would have that, so that couldn't happen. And then shortly after that, my daughter, disappeared into the woodwork for quite a few years. So that's how I became a kinship provider.
Okay. And how long have you been a caregiver now, Terry?
6 years. So my granddaughter always lived with me, but I got guardianship when she was 2, and she's 8 now.
Okay. I'm going to switch over and put a question out there. Another one. What have you found to be the biggest challenge that you faced in your role as a caregiver? Anybody can answer that question.
I'll
Ray?
answer that one.
Go ahead, Mr.
In our case, the biggest challenge is finance, money. The kids, we love them, and we're great together, but the biggest thing is finance.
But don't you get paid a monthly check to be a caregiver because you're taking care of children?
Yeah, we get TANF. That's a little bit. It started off at $140 per child, and now it's somewhat more, but not much more, not nearly what a foster parent would get. But basically, as I mentioned earlier, my grandkids were 5 and 7 when we got them, and my wife was a nurse, and it wasn't working out as far as sending them to school in her nursing, so she took early retirement. And of course that reduced our household income. And raising young children, they grow very fast. They outgrow their clothes, they outgrow their shoes. And for the first time in my lifetime, and I'm 73 years old, I shamefully learned to use the food bank. And so I'd say finance is the biggest thing. If we had the finance and the support there, everything else would work out. In our case, I can't speak for everybody else.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Richardson. And do you want to speak a little bit to the finances and what's going on in Arizona in terms of finances? Because when Mr. Richardson is talking about he's receiving some benefits, but it's not what foster parents are, can you help us understand a little bit about
Sure.
that?
The way it works in Arizona, if the Department of Child Safety placed the children with you, they tell you that you may become a licensed foster family, a licensed kinship family, which would get exactly the same benefits, allowances, and everything that a standard foster family would get. But what turns out is the vast majority of kinship caregivers cannot qualify. It's a variety of things. Maybe you have someone in your family with a record, even though it's a very old record and the person has been well behaved for many years, they can exclude you. There are all kinds of the size of your house, the number of beds, all kinds of things. So the reality in Arizona is that 10% of the kinship families qualify to become licensed. 90% are not licensed. And just as Ray said, they can receive child-only TANF, which is now here, it's $168 a month, and they receive a small clothing allowance. So some of the kinship caregivers, way back in 2008, 2009, when we were in a recession and so many services were being cut back, some of our kinship caregivers who were in a support group got together and said, we've got to do something to help us because we can't afford to keep these children. And they went to the director of the agency where they were receiving their supportive services, and she said, well, then you're going to have to become advocates. You're going to have to learn how to work with the legislature and get them to give you more money. So we started a campaign, which after about 4 or 5 years of hard work, learning how to tell our stories, learning how the legislative system worked, um, practicing testifying in committees or going to speak to legislators when we have a day at the lobby, we managed to get them to set up something called the Kinship Family Fund. And it was $75 per child per month, in addition to any other aid you were getting, like the TANF only and any other assistance. Well, $75 doesn't go very far, especially when you think about clothes and school supplies and shoes and everything else. So we started working on parity. We wanted the families who are kinship foster families and have exactly the same needs for money to get the same resources that a standard foster family gets. And finally, this year, we were successful in raising the grant from the Kinship Family Fund from $75 to $300 a month. And so when you combine the $300 a month with the TANF only and the clothing allowance and a few other things, you creep pretty close. You don't get all the way, but you get a substantial assist. Every year we have had we're called the Arizona Grandparent Ambassadors. And every year we have a summit and we decide on our priorities. And then we go and speak to legislators about those priorities. And always finances is number one that comes up as the biggest need. And the stress of not having enough money makes everything else worse. If you have the security of having enough money that you can take care of basic needs, then you can go find the best school and the therapists and all of the other things. But otherwise, it's just a real struggle. I'll just tell you the one funny thing. We were so persistent in visiting legislators, putting on our T-shirts, reminding them who we were. We sent cookies from Grandma. We sent Valentines from Grandma. And we're not just grandmas. We're kinship families, caregivers. But it started with a bunch of grandmas. That someone invented the term for us. They call us bags, badass grandmas, because we bother them so much. So we have succeeded.
Well, congratulations, and what I hear you saying is that it's taken years of advocacy and persistence, and that there have been incremental changes, and that as of this year, you have the $300 per month per child in Arizona. But if I'm correct, I think that's approved for 1 year right now.
That's right. And even though the bill says that it's expected to be extended every year, we know that that won't happen unless we keep up the effort.
Thank you.
And we join forces with anybody else who cares about foster care or about children. And
thank you, Anne. And I think that it's worth noting, I know those of you on the panel know that from state to state it varies. So what a family receives from state to state may be different, or what they may be eligible for. And also the licensing process and all of that. But those statistics that you shared, I think, are right on point in terms of that there are approximately probably 90% of relative caregivers are not licensed. And so therefore, that's where you get the disparity in terms of the resources and the compensation. I'm wondering if, Terry, would you like to speak to what challenges you faced in terms of trying to access resources for your child? Or have you
Sure.
faced any challenges?
Yeah, we've had a lot of challenges. The first was financial, because I worked outside the home when I first got guardianship of my granddaughter, and the cost of daycare. And I went down and applied for the child-only grant, only to find out that I was over income for it. And so I could not receive any help for daycare or anything. And so I was put in a position where I was forced to work overtime to be able to have the extra money to pay for daycare. And also just the waiting list for mental health services. My granddaughter was on a waiting list for quite a few years, and she's never came up. And for services. And so I found a private mental health provider that we've been able to work with. And also Head Start. We went through the whole interview process, and because of the trauma that she experienced, she was real high on that level of need. And as soon as they got to my income, it put us way on the other end of the spectrum. And so she became ineligible for Head Start. But then they told me that if I got involved with DHS, that regardless of my income, that we would have qualified for that service.
So let me interrupt you for a second and make sure I'm getting this right. So you're saying that finances and limited finances was an issue and is an issue. So as a result, you worked extra jobs and did other things to supplement. And because of that, you were able to get some resources for your granddaughter. However, when you apply for different services, you were told that you made too much money to be able to receive assistance. Is that correct?
Yes, basically the therapist that I did see, we had to pay out of pocket for that and use my medical for it because all other services I was over income for.
So it sounds like as a kinship caregiver, you're kind of caught in the middle. You know, you're doing what you're supposed to do. You're trying to work and take care of your family, but then it's kind of like you're penalized for doing that.
Exactly.
In terms of when you need help.
The only service that I've been eligible for is through Aging and Disability Services, and that was once I reached the age of 55. And what we get is $200 a year. Not a month, a year.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you. Titiana, I want to ask you to join us a little bit and talk about what challenges have you faced in caregiving, and also if you want to speak a little bit also about resources for getting quality services for your child.
Okay, so I would have to say finances was kind of like the last thing that I felt like I had difficulties with. Like I said, I grew up in foster care. I was the type of child in foster care, I had no problem speaking on what I wanted, what I needed. So when it came to my little brother, I was on it. And then like I was already familiar with social workers and how, they work at social services. So I knew how to advocate and speak up and say, what I need, what I don't need, but if he's supposed to get this, we're gonna take it. Something that I say that I didn't have that much support with was respite.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, I was young, I was in college, and then like when my mom just drastically leaving like that, I mean, it's not like it wasn't something I was used to, but just how it happened. And I didn't think she would do that to her last child. Like I'm one of the oldest. And my little brother, he's like the baby. So, she's been doing this with all my siblings.
How many siblings do you have, Titiana?
Oh, my mother got I think 9 or 10 kids alone. I don't know how many my dad have. I just know we all have different dads. My mom said my dad had 2 before me, so I don't know. But I know for sure my mom has 9, and the oldest is 30. The youngest is Kamori, which is 8. He'll be 9. So I said all that to say,
you were saying that you were about respite, that you had trouble getting respite. What is respite?
So when I grew up in foster care and my foster parents either needed a break or they was going out of town and didn't want to take me, I would go to another licensed foster home for that time and stay there. Why I felt like I needed it, like I said, I was young, I was 19, like this was a drastic change. I didn't think my mom was going to do this, blah, blah, blah. She did it. And I was still receiving therapy and things like that, but I didn't have the support like when I needed a break. Or I didn't have that go-to group. Maybe they had it at DSS and I wasn't aware. I doubt that, but I didn't have that go-to group like to come like weekly, like, and we could just express things that we're going through. We could have supports. I didn't have that. Like, there was times when I felt, my if we come from a mental health state, like the worst, like hopeless. And not saying I didn't have nobody I could talk to, but I had my therapist, but still, that still didn't help with me having to go home and still be with this child knowing how I felt. No, I wasn't trying to harm him, but I still had my own issues, you know? So, mental issues as far as what I'm speaking on. So that was more of a challenge for me, having that extra support. Like, I was 19 and then I'm being judged. Like, you know what I'm saying? People see me with the baby, they automatically think it's mine, which is fine. I'm good at beating statistics. They automatically think it's mine. You know what I'm saying? And they like, oh, this is a young girl and she's gonna work us. And I'm like, yeah, I am, because I grew up in foster care. I know how things go. You know, in some cases, everybody not bad, you know, but I know how things go, and mine not gonna slip through the cracks. So that's the one thing that I wish I had better support.
Well, I want to commend you for stepping up and beginning to break the cycle in your family. You're breaking a cycle and moving forward.
Thank you. Right, and the best way for me to do that is to just, you know, like thank you, Mr. Lewis, but, you know, I don't do this for recognition. Like, I do it, you know, because I didn't want him to grow up like, I feel like I'm a great product of foster.
I think you are too.
So,
same here.
Like, and people see me and they like, you grew up in care, and I'm like, well, how does foster children supposed to look? That's a stigma. But I'm working on it. We're advocating here in North Carolina, but I'm just saying, like, you know, when people see me, they don't think that. So when it came to my little brother, like, they like, oh, here she come with the attitude. I ain't got no attitude. I'm speaking up. I'm asking for help. You know what I'm saying? Y'all threw this baby on me, and not that y'all threw it on me. My mom didn't do what she was supposed to do, and I'm tied up in it. So yeah, I'm coming in here, and I need to speak to supervisors, whoever. I'm in all the meetings, paperwork I need to know about, holidays. Just put us on the Christmas wish list, whatever it is, you know. But that was my only thing. Like, I didn't have to make support, and then I had my siblings. But one, of course, they had their own life, and they knew how our mom was. Two, like, I want to say it was Miss Ann, when it comes to that criminal background check. Like, we're not all bad, but we have records that followed us from foster care. And, you know what I'm saying, just the stigmas that go with that. Like, I can have my brothers, they'll come over and spend the night. If I had to work and my brother spend the night there, the social worker will come, do a pop-up, and automatically assume it's a guy that I'm having dealings with. Now, mind you, my mom got 9 kids. We all got different dads. Some of us don't look alike, but we all look alike. And I just had a bad experience with social workers, like, judging me first and foremost. You know what I'm saying? And not giving all the support when I needed it, as far as like a break, somebody to give me some resources. Another foster, not even foster parent, but another kinship family. You know, I'm the youngest one in this. As far as what I'm seeing, you know what I'm saying? They're like, oh my God, you adopted your brother. Like, yeah,
well, again,
you know what I'm saying? But
I want to commend you again for stepping up, because you are young, and you are doing everything that a responsible adult should do, and then some. So your family and your brother are very fortunate and blessed to have you. I'm curious.
Interrupt.
Go ahead, Mr. Richardson, please.
Yeah, and just call me Ray.
Okay, Ray, jump in.
Everybody calls me Ray.
Jump in.
No problem. I guess to speak to Terry's situation and jumping off of what Ann said, the child-only TANF, as I understand it, or as we're treating it here through our social worker, is it's based on the child's income.
Mm-hmm.
Your child's only, and so it doesn't involve our income, you know. Now, when you get into it, as we try to apply for SNAP or the food stamps, yes, it does, but we were able to get the TANF and also the Medicaid, which provided all the health and services, as well as the free lunches for the kids. And when I fill out the form for the TANF, that part that asks about my income, I just say NA, not applicable. So that's the way it's treated, at least through my social worker. I'm not sure about the state of Virginia or what, but it is child only.
And it does. Yeah. I think that's probably supposed to be how it is, but I think it varies from state to state. Sometimes how it's processed and interpreted. I can tell you in New Jersey here that we'll send families, because I also work in a Kinship Navigator program, we'll send families to apply for the child only grant to the Board of Social Services, and they'll be told they're not eligible or it doesn't exist. So I think the other thing that we've seen is that sometimes it depends on who the workers are that you encounter at the different agencies, because everybody is not informed or aware of all the resources and all the rules in the same way. So, sometimes you find that advocacy is really important, as well as it's like you have to educate yourself about the resources, then you have to fight for the resources. And I hear you all giving me examples of different ways that you've done that. I'm curious to know, did any of you receive opportunities to be trained in your new role, like to have updated training on how to parent, or training on how to be a caregiver, or did any? Because I know foster parents receive a formal training. And you want to jump in?
Well, actually, it looked as if I could qualify to become a licensed foster family. And so I did start the process, which took 6 months to complete, and an incredible amount of paperwork and things that had to be done. There was training I had to take, and luckily my job offered enough flexibility that I could sign up for the training. It had no reference to kinship families. It was entirely, it was interesting because they talked about child development and that sort of thing, but it was not specialized training. And this is one of the things that we've advocated for, the Arizona Grandparent Ambassadors, is the training for foster parents who are going through an effort to become licensed should be specific, because the standard foster family doesn't have to think about the child's relationship to your family member and your relationship to your family member, and things like holidays and birthdays that are especially complicated when you have family and not just the event happening by itself. There's so many ways that it's different for kinship families. So we have recommended that the training, if someone looks like they might qualify and they're trying this process, the training should be specialized, related to the issues that kinship families experience. And it's not.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah. Has anybody else had an opportunity? Titiana, you wanted to jump in on that training piece? Did you have an opportunity to receive any training or offer to you?
I didn't, and I didn't even think about that, but that's good. What Miss Ann pointed out, and also, like, as an advocate, that speak for foster children, I done stood in many MAP trainings for upcoming foster parents. I done spoke on, from a foster child's perspective on why they should foster, and I was not introduced to anything on how to be a kinship relative. How to do this kinship thing. Yeah, I was his sister, but like today with him being 8, sometimes I have to change my hats, like to sister hat or mommy hat. So yeah, having trainers on how to be a parent. I didn't have no kids at that time. Like I told you, I went from college getting new kicks every time they came out, partying, that type of thing, doing what I was supposed to do at 19 and 20 years old. And then being dropped with a 3-month-old baby. Like, my mom just decided not to come home one weekend. Like, and now I'm stuck with a 3-month-old baby and got class Monday. So yeah, I needed those parenting skills, like how to not chastise, but instead of corporal punishment, because I'm used to getting my butt beat, instead of doing things like that, how to talk to your child, how to punish them for their age, different activities for them, so that way my little brother wasn't sitting around me, 19-year-old me, with my 19-year-old college friends, those types of things. So I agree. I think I should have been exposed to different types of trainings, and I would have actively participated. Get my certificate.
One of the things that I've heard from each of you is that, and maybe I heard it wrong, but I think what I heard is that each of you are advocating in some way. You've been advocating for kinship families, and I believe some of you are probably even doing work in the area. So I'm curious as to, I would like to give each of you a couple of minutes to just tell me, if you could change one thing about the child welfare system, or about how this country views kinship and relative caregivers or supports them, what would you recommend? What would you love to see? And why don't we start with Terry?
Thank you, Dolores. The one thing that I would like to see is every state have a Kinship Navigator program, because when I first received guardianship, there was no program. And so I was trying to navigate a very complex situation in agencies. Like when I went down and filed for the child only grant, the worker told me that there wasn't any, and I had to insist that she get a supervisor. And then I was told it was in Oregon, it's based off my income, not the child's income. And so, it was hard trying to make calls to find services. During my breaks and my lunch break, and then I got off after 5 o'clock. And so then all the agencies were closed. And so it was just like this endless battle, where now I'm the Oregon Kinship Navigator Specialist. And so I can make some of those calls and take some of the pressure off the families. And also, I've familiarized myself with services in our area for kinship families. And so instead of them having to make all the calls, I can tell them, hey, here's the person you want to speak to. Here's their phone number. This is exactly what you asked for. And if you have any issues, please call me back and I'll help navigate that for you.
Thank you. Terry, I'm just curious. I'm going to interrupt for 1 second. Do you believe, would you be doing this work as a Kinship Navigator Specialist if you were not a relative caregiver?
No, I wouldn't be. I would be retired because that's what I did as I retired from the state, and then took on this position because of the fact that I needed health insurance and I wasn't eligible for Medicaid yet. I'm just going to be 60 in October. And so, I have a couple more years that I need to be employed. And so, and I needed the extra income to be able to raise my granddaughter, because of the fact that we aren't eligible for any kind of assistance. And
thank you, Terry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure I got what you said. Mm-hmm. Your recommendation is that every state should have a Kinship Navigator program. I want to make sure we don't lose that. That's your recommendation, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to redirect. I just want to make sure we get everybody in. Titiana, if you were to make a recommendation, what would it be? To change the child welfare system to support families better? Or what would you like to see done differently?
Support.
Maybe that's a better way to ask it.
I mean, see, what you asking me that, and that's what I work on here in North Carolina, as a part of Say So, making the foster care system better. For kinship, I would say resources and support, housing for sure.
Can you speak just a second to housing? Why is housing an issue?
Well, in North Carolina, based upon your income. No, housing, I mean, for me, housing was an issue then because I went from like college living to having to be a parent. And then with being a parent, with being a kinship parent, you have certain stipulations, bedroom size, what the child needs to have, how much space they need away from each other, those types of things. But if you guys not helping with that and I don't have that money, I'm a college student, how am I just going to change up my living area? So better support with that, how to find those resources, how to advocate for yourself, and a safe space just to be human. I mean, even parents, sometimes we need that, that go-to or that time alone. So
thank you, Titiana. So I heard more resources, more support and guidance to find resources. But I also heard something else that you said indirectly, that you said, although housing is an issue, finding housing itself, that if there was more flexibility about requirements for housing size, bedroom size, number of those things, that also would take a lot of pressure off of families.
That's true, because even though I was able to adopt my little brother, when they when the apartment complex, they might not take that charge I got.
I
You understand
understand.
what I'm saying? So that's a stipulation. Or I got to make 4 times the rent here in North Carolina. Who's making 4 times the rent? You know what I'm saying? Like the CEOs. But anyway,
Thank
those
you.
types of things. I don't think we need special privilege, but we need help in finding
Okay.
those resources.
I'm gonna jump over to Ann and let Ray go after Ann. Ann?
Well, my initial thought was that there should be equitable financial support between kinship families and other foster care families. But also, there should be more understanding of the special needs of kinship families, and that means the mental health services and the educational services that a child who's been through trauma often needs that kind of service. And so it would be a whole network, kind of a wraparound of services. So when someone enters the system and they get a kinship navigator, the navigator has not just a lot of little agencies here and there, but a whole network that communicates with each other. And the person can be referred into that network. I just think we don't do a very good job of recognizing the value of our children and the importance of being able to give them love, support, good discipline, the services that will enable them to work through the challenges that they face. So that's kind of all wrapped up.
Thank you, Ann. Thank you so much. So equitable financial support between foster parents and kinship caregivers, as well as more understanding about the special needs that kinship families and foster children have. And you talked about also wraparound services being available. So thank you. Ray?
Yes. Yeah, on that, I think that Ann's pretty much covered it. I just say finance. As far as housing, let me back up just a little bit. We joined a group here in Chesterfield County at first it was called Grandparents Connection, because mostly it was grandparents raising grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
But then there were aunts and uncles and so forth. So then that's when it was changed to Kinship Connection. And they've been very helpful to us. And within that group, we have a great grandmother who's raising her great grandkids, etc. And some have housing issues. We all have finance issues that need more finance. In our own personal case, we have our own home, and so, that wasn't an issue with us, but it is among so many other of our peers here in the county. And so, in my own case, I'd say it's just finance, finance, finance. And it should be the same as with foster parents, in that if it wasn't for us stepping in the gap, the kids would have been in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
They would have been there.
So
And
that's
it.
I certainly appreciate what you said, Ray. I don't mean to stop us abruptly, but I'm getting the signal that we're out of time.
Yeah.
So I wanted to take a moment to say thank you so much for sharing your stories. Thank you so much for the hard work and advocacy that you're doing on behalf of the families in your state. Thank you so much for the care that you're giving to the children that you've helped raise. I understand your journey. I have to self-disclose and say I too have been a kinship caregiver. So I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being the heroes in our community. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Tatiana. Thank you, Ray. And thank you, Ann.
Hello, everybody. I'm Larry Cooper. I am the Chief of Prevention and Intervention Services at the Children's Home Network down in Tampa, Florida. And I'm really grateful that you're joining us for the National Virtual Kinship Town Hall today. And I'll be leading our panel discussion today with some awesome folks from around the country that we'll be talking to and having a great discussion here to share with you today. So the goal of this panel today is really to highlight some of the formal and grassroots providers across the U.S. and really highlight the needs of caregivers and the needs of providers providing support to kin care families across the U.S. So today we have some wonderful people that I'll introduce you to, and we'll learn a little bit more about what they do and how they help families in their areas. So first I'll introduce Suzette Brown. She's with Each One, Teach One Together from Georgia. So welcome, Suzette. We also have Karen Barnes. She's with Grands Stepping Up from Pennsylvania. And we have Angie Nickel. She's the Associate Director of New Programming and Kinship Caregiving at the College of Education and Human Development at the University of Missouri. And then last but not least, we have Cynthia Green, Director of Family Support at the Edgewood Center for Children and Families in Northern California. So welcome to you all. I'm grateful for you to be here with me today. And we're just going to have a great discussion today, and I appreciate you guys participating. Thank you. So just to start off, I'm going to kick it to each of you to share a little bit about what your programs are about, what and who you serve, as we go forward. So I'm going to start with Karen. I know from Pennsylvania, so and outside of Philadelphia. So Karen, tell us a little bit about the type of program, the type of caregivers you serve, a little bit about the services and the services that you include.
Well, thank you so much. My name is Karen Barnes. I am a kinship, or actually I'm raising my granddaughter. I started a nonprofit called Grand Stepping Up. We are in Delaware County, Pennsylvania, but we do assist primarily kinship family members all over our state. And I have been raising my granddaughter for 10 years since she was born. So I wanted to start a holistic wheel of support that would address my struggles as a grandmother starting all over again. And so in 2020, February of 2020, Grand Stepping Up was born, and we assist with a holistic wheel of support that assists all the grand families, and we assist everyone, regardless if they're in the foster care system or they're not. With our holistic wheel of support, which includes many different things to, really lift up the grand families, and most importantly, the children. We have a legal clinic. We have financial services if you need help with your bills. We have, most importantly, what we have is a trauma-focused therapeutic services, which addresses not only the suffering and loss of the grandchildren, but also as a coaching model for the grand families. So that has been really wonderful. And we also have activities so that we can have a social experience for the children. And, we also meet the most immediate needs of the grand families that we are seeing here in our county, in our state, which is food and clothing. So we have Dennis's Pantry, which was named after my brother, Dennis. It's a food and clothing and baby pantry. And my brother Dennis had Down syndrome and had passed away of the COVID. So we do this in his memory and honor.
Awesome.
And we extended this to everyone in Delaware County. At the beginning of COVID, when everyone was suffering, we didn't anticipate a pandemic. So we extended our mission statement to include Dennis's Pantry to help everyone. And we've given out in 2 years over $1 million of in-kind donations to our state and specifically our county. So we're very grateful to all of our donors and sponsors and organizations that partner with us to have that happen.
Great.
So
amazing. So we'll learn a little bit more as we go along in our discussion this morning. So thanks for that, Karen. And I'll pass it over to Suzette. So Suzette, tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing as a caregiver and down there in Georgia.
Thank you. Yes, I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and Each One Teach One Together is a nonprofit that started because when I went through my first divorce, of course, it was very traumatic for me. I suffered from anxiety and depression, and my birth mom decided that she would help me to get myself together by taking my biological daughter and being a foster parent. And with my husband now, we adopted 10 children. I find that it was very rewarding because one of my daughters, I have her daughter now. And I figured that if my birth mom helped me, then I can truly help my own daughter. So that's how I started Each One Teach One Together, because I do believe that each one of us should teach and we should be together to help one another. So it started in 2018. And what I do with my nonprofit is, being that I'm in that situation, have a lived experience, I know what it's like. I know that resources are limited. I know that a lot of parents, especially grandparents raising grandkids, kinship parents, and fictive kin, they have no idea where to start when it comes to resources. I am the map to help them. I'm the tour guide to help them to find what they need. I do the footwork. So with that being said, I do trainings. I'm a strong believer in mental health. My granddaughter, who is now 13, had a since birth. She has 4 mental health diagnoses: depression, anxiety, pica, and depression. So with that being said, I'm a strong advocate of mental health. So I have 2 mental health support groups each month. And I invite the families in and anyone that wants to attend, because mental health is a community knowledgeable event that everybody needs to break the silence. And that's what we
Awesome.
do.
Amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then I'll pass it over to Angie Nickel over there in Missouri.
Hi, thank you. Parent Link is an outreach unit within the University of Missouri-Columbia. And our Kinship Navigator program serves all kinship providers, both those in formal settings with a child in the child welfare system, and those outside of the child welfare system that just have an informal agreement with the biological parents to care for the child. So we do serve the entire state of Missouri. We connect with caregivers in person, as well as a statewide phone line that's answered by master's level staff, and we provide that Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and on the weekends from noon to 5. They're also available to answer text and social media requests and posts. And then we also provide virtual support group meetings so that we can make sure that folks across the state can participate, and those meetings are open to kinship families, foster families, professionals, anyone who wants to attend. We have an informational meeting where it's more educational in nature, and so we'll have a speaker present on a specific topic. And then we also have a peer meeting that is peer-led. And we do facilitate those meetings, but it's based on what the kinship caregivers would like to discuss. So throughout our programming, we provide ongoing problem-solving support, opportunities for peer connections. We also provide assistance with social service applications. And then we call them warm handoffs to state, regional, and community resources. So instead of it just being a referral, we make sure that the connection is going to be a good connection, and they're able to speak with someone in that organization and get connected to the resource or service that they need. We also partner with an organization to provide family mediation support, and we provide essential item distributions across the state.
Awesome. So you guys are all doing just amazing broad brush work, which is just amazing to hear about. So thank you, Angie. And then Cynthia out there in California. I know Edgewood. I met the Edgewood folks probably over 20 years ago. And even 20 years ago, we're doing just amazing work out there. So I'm just really fortunate to have you here with us today. So tell everybody a little bit about the Edgewood Center.
Well, good morning. I feel very fortunate to be in the room together with everyone who's here. I work for Edgewood Center for Children and Families. It started out in 1851 as an organization that helped orphans who had lost their parents during the gold rush. And I wasn't there back then, but I have been with the agency for 20 years. It's a nonprofit agency, and we primarily focus on providing community support to all kinds of families and behavioral health support for children who have a little extra need. I'm responsible for the Kinship Program and the Family Resource Center, both of whom serve kinship families, one that serves informal families and the other that serves families who are formal, have some type of CPS involvement. So we really are able to serve all types of kinship families. We serve families using a variety of platforms. We do it in person, we do it by phone, we do it by text, we do them on buses, in planes and trains. Whatever the family needs is where we are. The services that we provide, we are a kinship support service, but we do a lot of kinship navigation. We do case management, really just trying to tailor the needs of families individually, trying to figure out where each family is and what they need. We have a lot of peer-led support groups. We have them in 3 languages, which are the languages of the Bay Area, which is English, Spanish, and Cantonese. You need to be able to do that if you live in San Francisco. We have an ILS program for kinship teens and young adults focused on supporting their caregivers and helping them grow up. We have a food pantry and a donation distribution center, and we do that on a weekly basis. We do a lot of respite, giving caregivers a break. So we'll do door-to-door service. We'll pick the kids up, take them up for a day of surfing, and let caregivers get a break and do what they need to do because they have a lot of things to do. And we do caregiver training. So we have guest speakers who come in and talk about things that the caregivers have asked us to provide. And because we are a behavioral health organizations, we're able to provide individual and group psychotherapy for both kids and adults.
Wow. Yeah. Great. So again, just, as we look across the country from the grassroots efforts to the formal non-for-profits and universities, right? It's just such a great broad brush. And I think as we all have, we've learned what caregivers need, and we've just continued to add to the array of things as we've gone forward for so many years, and Karen and Suzette, kind of being young providers to the team, but have learned a lot. So I want to kind of turn our attention to, what are those, kind of key needs that caregivers are coming to? Obviously, before the pandemic, it was already difficult to be a kinship caregiver. But the pandemic really just emphasized a number of other issues, right? As many of you had mentioned. So, as we go forward, what are the kind of the key needs that you guys are coming across, that families are coming to right now across the country? So I'll pass it back to Suzette to, what are those things that families are calling you about and really asking and emphasizing right now that you're really seeing?
What I find a lot of parents are calling about is just that they need guidance on rental assistance is number one, utilities, the high rate of utilities. Then a lot of them don't know how to navigate the system. Also, mental health. A lot of the children, because of COVID, are having repercussions from in school, behavior wise, when it comes to adjusting now back to face, and they're having challenges with that. Some are even having challenges with their own children or nieces or nephews of the children that they are parenting, and they'll call me really frustrated. And being that I have lived experience and I am a peer-to-peer specialist, I can speak to them as if I am right there with them. And that's what they like most of all, is for me to be honest with them and give them some type of suggestion. They also need guidance with re-educating themselves. They have now taken on this responsibility of having to to raise their grandkids, a fictive kin, a kinship, and their children are in their 20s, like my daughter. She's 50, and now I'm raising a 13-year-old. So I'm starting all over. So re-education is very important, and that's what I do. I'm here, and I can say that I'm truly here 24 hours a day.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the mental health piece, has really been opened up, I think, through the pandemic. As kids were isolated, families were feeling isolated. There was a lot of grief and loss for families across the area, not just within their family, but their close friends and neighbors and people that they were close to. And so that, has a big impact. Karen, how about for you in Pennsylvania? What were the things over this last period of time, 6 months? What are you hearing the most from caregivers that they're needing?
I really do agree wholeheartedly with Suzette, and it kind of is this same exact situation happening in Pennsylvania. I really receive a lot of phone calls asking for assistance. Food insecurity is at the paramount for us. And if you are food insecure, then, you need virtually every other service as well, financial services to help with utilities and rental assistance. The market in our county in Pennsylvania has been that a lot of our grandparents that are in a rental situation, their rentals are being sold, and then it puts them at another situation where they're trying to regain their stability with housing. And with all of these things, it of course affects everyone mental health. So we, really try to address anybody that comes to us, not only with our services, but also to be a resource that we can find different organizations that can support us in our mission of what we do to try to help the grand families holistically. But food insecurity is paramount for us.
Yeah, one of the studies that I had run across a number of years ago was, typically we're learning more and more that seniors are having more and more struggles with food insecurity. But when they have grandchildren with them, that increases the likelihood of food instability by almost 20%. So we know, being able to enroll in things like food stamps and getting connected to those food resources and food banks and things that you guys are doing is critical. So I definitely appreciate you bringing that up. So Angie, how about there in Missouri? What are caregivers there really talking about and asking for primarily? What are you running across?
Yeah, well, gosh, Suzette and Karen have really highlighted a lot of the same key needs that we're hearing from kinship caregivers in Missouri. Our statewide navigators are providing assistance with a lot of social service applications. So that seems to be a high need right now in our state. And then also connection to community resources. We're hearing a lot of wellness needs, such as accessing essential items, housing supports, utility, food insecurities, those kinds of things. And also behavioral health services and legal services. Those would be the other two additional key needs that I think we're hearing a lot of from the kinship caregivers that are asking for some services and supports.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. And Cynthia, what about for you? I know, again, rent is high everywhere, but it's always been high in San Francisco and in the Northern Bay Area. So what are you guys kind of seeing at this point with the pandemic? And California's had its ups and downs with the pandemic. So, what are you guys seeing there?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned rent. The average rent in San Francisco is about $2,500, $3,000 a month. So, yes. So people do need help with that. Specifically during COVID, people needed information, so we have spent the last 2 years talking about what is it, where is it, what can I do? Is this the true thing? Is that false? Where can I get tests? Where can I get vaccinations? What kind of mask do I need? I don't know. Where do I get those? Mm-hmm. So we did, we responded to those types of situations. And unfortunately, we did have some caregivers who passed away from this disease because they're older and vulnerable. and don't sometimes have the best access to medical care. But over the past 20 years, I don't feel like much has changed with what caregivers are telling me what they need. They need to know how to navigate these systems. How do you get benefits? What are they eligible for? How do you get food stamps? What do I need to do? That is constant. And as everyone has spoken about, the food insecurity, imagine a caregiver who's been feeding themselves, and then all of a
Yes.
sudden 3 teenagers are there, and they can eat you out of house and home, right? And having beds and pajamas and school uniforms and Chromebooks when they all had to go to school from home. So we just sometimes just give financial support. We are fortunate enough to have some benefactors who, like, this caregiver just needs $1,000 towards rent. We just need to pay that rent. We do a lot of legal issues around guardianship and also immigration, which impacts a lot of families in our community. It's caregivers need help with navigating school systems. It's not unusual for a kinship youth to have been in a lot of different schools before they finally get to a relative who can stabilize that. And each school district is different. So, we accompany people to school meetings, help them start an individualized education plan for kids if they need it. And they need a break, they need respite. And the one thing that caregivers always tell me is sometimes they just need someone to talk to. They need someone to do well checks and call every week, like just to talk. Case managers will take care of that other stuff, but we have other caregivers who just call people every month, send them a birthday card. I teach my team to start conversations with, I came across this and I thought about you. So, a human connection, a community connection is very important.
Yeah, no, that's again, the pandemic, folks were trying to figure out, like, where do we get, trusted information about being careful in their health and well-being, finding vaccinations and testing and protecting their kids, sending them to school or not sending them to school, masking or not masking. So they really struggled to try to figure out, like, where to get the best information, because it was so confusing throughout the pandemic, if it was coming from federal officials or state, local news outlets. It was a challenge to really understand what was best. And I think a lot of people were scared. And as we know, probably 30% of our kinship caregivers often have chronic health conditions that certainly were exacerbated by, getting COVID even before vaccines were even readily available for folks. So, just a variety of needs. I want to just highlight, like you guys have said, the mental health, the navigation of these very complex systems, right? Maybe it wasn't quite so complicated when they had their kids, but navigating school, navigating child welfare, health, legal, these are very complicated. And you guys all had pointed to the importance of navigating with the families and really that warm handoff and really leading them through, because they don't know what they don't know. And you guys are the experts, and the peers that are out there doing this work is fantastic. So I want to ask you guys a little bit about kind of the unique things that each of you are doing to really meet those needs of the caregivers. So, everybody's, mentioned a few variety of things that you do, but maybe point to a couple of the unique things that, you guys have brought forward. So Cynthia, you were mentioning, some things around the legal piece and some other things. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about some of those unique needs and services that you guys are providing to meet those.
Yeah. It's very important for us, in order to serve kinship families, to partner with other community-based agencies in the city and in the Bay Area, because the needs are so wide and so varied. We just can't do it all ourselves. And there are a lot of people with a lot of expertise in this community. And so it's important that we have a partnership with a legal agency. It's important that we have a collaboration with even a child care provider, who will help caregivers figure out where to get child care. It's important that we have a collaboration with an agency that specializes in immigration. And these collaborations include things like subcontracts and memorandums of understanding, people that we can call upon to bring that expertise in. I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we do is, we're all in this together, right? We're all helping the family and the community. We're not competitors.
Right. Well, it goes back to that old conversation about, it takes a village, right, to raise a family, but to support a family in these complex times and needs, having those community collaborations are key. I think we've mentioned as on our previous discussions, right, the fact that navigators are only as good as the community partners that they link them to, right? And so having those really close ties and formed relationships to break down the barriers for those kinship caregivers is essential, because it's easy to give them a phone number and a brochure of another program, but as you guys have all mentioned, right, being able to help them with those warm handoffs and navigation to clear away some of the barriers can help alleviate some of the stress. Because again, it's a lot of times a whole new world for a kinship caregiver, and those community collaborations are essential to be successful. Angie, how about for you? What are some of the unique things that you guys are targeting to really meet some of those needs of caregivers in Missouri?
Yeah, wow. Well, just one note on community collaboration that you and Cynthia both mentioned. That is so important. And, one of the struggles that we hear from kinship caregivers is that it's just overwhelming. They just don't know what next step to take. And, that's just such a burden on their shoulders that we want to lift for them, or at least support them to lift that from them. So we try to do that legwork for them and make sure that we go through that problem solving support and outline next steps and just kind of help them get a plan in place. And then we are there for them, whether it takes 3 weeks or whether it takes 6 months, to make sure that they're going through those steps in a way that is comfortable for them and makes sense for their family. So I love that note that you guys made about community connections, because it's so true. And without those strong partnerships and trusted relationships, I think that we can't do the work that we're trying to do without those relationships. One of the other things that we're providing is really that topic-based education. And so, I've heard several of you mention that, when you're parenting a second time around, gosh, there's a lot to know out there about things that have changed. And so we, with our navigators, we go and do some in-person supportive trainings and educational opportunities on things like trauma-informed parenting, conscious discipline, mental health. We're working with a recovery center right now to build some parental substance abuse and overdose opportunities for caregivers who are caring for kids when the biological parents are in recovery or incarcerated. And so, just helping them to know we're in this with you, and we'll provide this information, but then along with this information, let us know what else you need. And we'll make sure that we provide those supports as well.
And I think you bring up a really important point, right? That there's this unique crossover across so many areas, right? Substance abuse, mental health, trauma, grief and loss. I mean, there's so many things that are cross-cutting. And so sometimes we just assume, a lot of, legislators and states often think about like those basic needs, right? Financial aid, but really that's so complex, the kinds of needs that families are dealing with. And I think, rallying again a cross sector of providers and collaborative partners to bring that education forward, because again, the Navigator is not a mental health provider or a trauma expert, but we know who those folks are out in the community, and we need to kind of rally them together. And the other thing I would just mention is, many schools of social work have bachelor, BSW students who are dying to learn about resources and learn about navigating, and are interested in, stepping into nonprofits and others to really learn and help others. And so we really want to make sure, it's important that we're, thinking about all those other folks we can bring to the table. And so, universities have that just unique opportunity of pulling in a lot of capacity of students who are really interested and energetic to learn into the mix. So that's great that you guys are kind of through the university base to kind of really think about it from an educational standpoint. So let's go to Suzette. Suzette, what are those unique things that you're doing that, maybe we haven't talked about so much today or yet, or things that or things that you spend a lot of time focusing in on with the caregivers that you touch?
Well, the main thing I try to provide is peer-to-peer support, because that's basically, and I know I've mentioned that, but that's very important for caregivers of all ages, because this is a new focus, is parenting after you've already parent your children. They're all grown out of the house. And also, as Cynthia said, I am working very hard to be that person to go out and bring in different partnerships and collaborate with different organizations so that I can. There are a lot of stone brick walls that I run into with that, which we will probably talk about later. But I am a 501c3, and I feel that there is so much more that I could do if I had the funds to do it. But I still collaborate with my partners. I've been successful with some of the rental assistance, is getting that support with the Kinship program in Fulton County, working with them, clothing, working with the closet to get toys, having donations for the children. We give toys and coats to the families that I have. I have almost 80 children and 40 families that we give every Christmas. We give coats and toys. So with that being said, the focus is, and then during Thanksgiving, we work toward giving turkeys. So turkeys are going to be high this year, so we got to work real hard to try and get the funding for that. But that's what we do, and I just want to be that all-around agency that they can call me. And if I can't do it, then what I do is go into our community and find the agency that may be able to help them.
Awesome. Yeah, I think, again, there's so many things that families are missing. Again, the financial burden, affects everything from not having something for a birthday or a holiday celebration or a holiday time for kids when they're looking around at their peers and they're not with their parents. It's a real struggle, and to be able to meet some of those concrete needs is essential, and knowing where to get the help. And there's so many people out there that are looking to find a group to assist. So when we talk about grandparents raising grandkids, it's not hard to sell it to, a church or a neighbor group or a bank or, some other local providers who really would love to step in and help. Because I think it's easy to understand the challenge for a caregiver. So it's really easy in the sense of you just got to ask and keep asking, because, there's a lot of folks out there interested in this population. And Karen, thinking about you guys, the food pantry piece, that you said, and how that's just really been a neat focus of what you guys do. How big of a need is that? How many people are you serving through the pantry on a regular basis there?
On a regular basis, there's hundreds of people that come twice a week when we're open. Wow. And like Suzette was saying, it is such a great thing that we can offer the holistic assistance with Thanksgiving and Christmas. And, we wouldn't be able to do that without partnering with our organizations in our area. Small Things Philly is connected with Phil Abundance, a major food distributor in our area. And it's just phenomenal to have that support. Also, I just wanted to let you know that our clients that are coming to us that are food insecure, they're also talking about that they have problems with needing legal services so that they can continue to raise their grandchildren and keep them safe with custody. So we do have a great legal department with 15 lawyers in different disciplines in our area that have come on board at a discounted rate. But like we were all saying, we need additional funding so that this isn't something that is just regarding needing a lawyer, but holistically for them. And to get a discounted rate, we appreciate it. I myself was at that spot in my journey raising my granddaughter. So I think that, every little bit helps, and we're so grateful for all. We also work with our legal services, and we also have any idea is a great idea. The way that we, the grandparents that are coming to us with all the different diverse needs, and but the numbers are getting bigger every day. Food insecurity is a huge issue, and being able to have the pantry where we're able to house other things to assist holistically, with the grand and kinship family members has just been, it's been phenomenal. It's because of our donors, our kindness and generosity of all of our donors and sponsors and organizations that we deal with. So we're grateful, but we need more to help us do more.
Well, yeah. And again, as I think many of you said, you got to meet those basic needs before you can address those higher level, more complex needs. Because if they're worried about their food and their rent and keeping the lights on, it's hard to think about anything else. So being able to meet those needs first are important. I wanted to ask you guys around, each of you have your particular areas within your states that you're functioning. Angie, you have kind of a broader brush in terms of statewide work that you guys are doing. But are folks on on our panel here today kind of hearing from your county? Are you hearing from your state about some of the efforts that they're looking to do for supporting kinship caregivers and providers? Or are you kind of having to go to them to try to find that information and ask them about what are some of the statewide efforts? Because sometimes there's a little bit of a disconnect. So Cynthia, for in California, what's kind of happening there in terms of are the state kind of communicating, or the county, like, here's what we're doing because we know this is a big issue? Or are you really having to step out there and kind of gather and hunt and peck for the information that you guys need to do the work?
I don't doubt that the state and the county has a commitment to serve kinship families, but the information doesn't get to us in a timely manner or in a way in which we can participate. Information flows first to the state, and then it flows to the county, and then it flows out to the community. And sometimes we just don't know where the state is. And in fact, I sent out a bunch of emails just last night with, my county contacts. Hey, how you guys doing on the Family First Prevention Act? Any conversations happening anywhere that I can participate in? And that's the way I get in, is that I have to be extremely proactive and depend on people like you, Larry, and other kinship providers, like, where are y'all at, so that I know where things should be. So, there's bureaucracy involved, the red tape, and in order to make it in the kinship business, you really got to search for yourself.
Yeah. And the other thing, and you bring up a really good point, every state in the country right now and territories are developing their Families First plan that they're submitting to the federal government for approval. And so it's important for folks all across the country to be reaching out to your state child welfare office to really understand, what the plan is. And so where do non-for-profits fit into the picture, or how they can support the work that's being done, or what some of the direct efforts, because many states, and I'll turn it to Angie, are accessing those Title 4B funds, which, had come out over the last several years to really help states either develop a model or enhance the work that they were doing, or even just do some research and evaluation on the effectiveness of their existing program work. So how, Angie, for you at a university, kind of how do you get a sense of what's happening from a statewide perspective or state initiatives? What's kind of the direction of information there in Missouri?
Yeah. just like you said, Larry, we received Title IV-B funds to fund our Kinship Navigator program, and it has been a process just to, I guess, strengthen those relationships that we have with state leaders and make sure that all of the dots are connecting in flowing from the federal requirements all the way down to the work that we're actually doing. And so we, coming from the university point of view, we really want to make sure that data is driving some of our programming decisions. And so Cynthia said it beautifully that, we really have to be proactive in the steps that we take to educate ourselves so that we can build the best program possible. So our organization is currently working on a project to collect information on needs and barriers to accessing services for both formal and informal kinship caregivers in our state. We're also gathering some information from providers to better understand what services are currently available and see how those two pieces of the puzzle meet together and where there are some gaps.
Right.
And so this information will be provided to state leaders and policymakers this coming legislative session. And hopefully we'll be able to use that data to elevate some of those needs so that we can build a better supportive system for both formal and informal kinship caregivers in our state.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. I mean, data collection and learning about what's impacting families is valuable in terms of shifting policy and practice and funding to meet those needs. So being able to really, again, I can't emphasize enough, from small nonprofits to large nonprofits, the importance of connecting with universities and researchers and evaluators to really help with gathering data and sharing and telling that kind of story, because I think there's a missed opportunity there to really put the numbers with the needs, because we all know anecdotally the stories, but how do we put a number to that and really demonstrate the impact on kids and families? And I think being able to collect that data is crucial. In terms of small nonprofits, I know, Suzette and Karen, we've talked, oftentimes as a small nonprofit, people will reach out to you for help, but typically the county or the state's not saying, hey, you little, small grassroots folks, here's what's happening statewide, and here's where you should step in, and here's how we can help you. So, one of the things I know we talked about was getting technical assistance. There's so many small non-for-profits, grandmas working out of their kitchen and in their home trying to get this work done. So what kind of things do you think are needed for folks like you and other grandparents that are doing this work need from states and counties in terms of technical assistance and supports? What do you think's been missing, or recommendations you might make as you guys have kind of learned over these last few years what you needed over the last few years? So Karen, I'll throw it to you first, and then I'll send it to Suzette.
So, I really think that it is so much based in education and in servicing all the organizations that we do exist and we are here, and how we're helping, many of their clients in their different organizations and disciplines. And I think that a lot what was very helpful for me in getting the word out was to have gather all the social workers from all the school districts and let them know that we were here to, assist their families that are struggling, that are grand families. And I think it's just a matter of, getting the word out in a much more grand way that we're able to do as grassroots organizations that are working, just in our in our communities. I think that this can absolutely really make a ginormous, effort for all of the grand families if we just that they know that we're there. So I think it is education. It's getting the word out in public forums like this, that across the country, that we can everyone can see what we are doing, across the country.
Right.
And just to be thought of in different discretionary funds that might be available in our counties and states, and to be thought of when there is a budget decision so that the grand families, we are a lot of times the silent victims suffering a commonality together.
Yes.
So I think that would be really great.
Okay, great. So the outreach is key. Suzette, you had mentioned to me also just, it would be great if there was some technical assistance to learn about grants and how to manage, resources and how to pull things together as a small non-for-profit. What do you think, as we're talking to folks around the country and they're listening to this discussion, what do you think they should know and be asking about? Because again, it's, you guys have kind of learned as you've gone along here. So what would have been helpful or what could be helpful to a small nonprofit to kind of learn some of the lessons that you've learned?
Well, all of the above. And I would say that I have reached out to some technical assistant organizations, but there are fees behind that. And being a small profit, that is a challenge, is having the fees to be able to get these. I do have a grant writer. I do have my master grant. I want the states, the counties to know that a Karen and I may be small, but we have a passion and a purpose, and we can do the work. We may not have the staff, but we do have volunteers. I have volunteers. I do a lot of work, and I want my families to be able to get that information or the training or the education that they need and the resources that they need to be able to done. But I also want the state and the county agencies to know, trust Karen and I, trust the nonprofits, that we have our nonprofit status and we are just as valuable as the larger agencies. And I know somewhere in that puzzle we can fit, that if you just include us into the planning and into the funding, and we will be able to get out and make an impact with our families. We have the lived experience. That's very important. And I'm not taking anything away from the agencies that don't, but families want to hear from people that's been there, done that. And we have it. So I say to my agencies in Georgia, I'm building, I'm working, but I think there's a not exactly trusting that I am capable of being able to take that load if they give me the funding. And I've tried the technical assistance, and the fees were just really too much that I could afford. I already have a private person that did my nonprofit piece and everything, and I'm still trying to pay for that. So I can't afford it. So having some that we can do, that have the funding to pay for it, that would be great. That would be great.
All right, well, with our last few moments, I know we're running a little short on time, so I'm going to pass it to Cynthia and Angie. What are some of the, final thoughts in terms of, what are some things that we think legislators, states, and national technical assistance centers can do to really support the work that we're all doing here on this panel? So, Cynthia, what's your kind of thoughts on that?
I think it's one of the things that I do is public education, which is going out and speaking to agencies and departments about who kinship families are and making sure they understand that it's not just those people living over there, right? It's people that access your services. They are yours. They are everyone's. They are private businesses families. They're the school board's families. They're the fire department's families. And so this support that we provide to these families is something they need to get behind because we are serving their community. So I think it's important for everyone to understand who kinship families are, the relief that caregivers provide for the county welfare system, the relief that they provide finding foster families, how they're taking care of kids who are not in the system, how they take care of kids before kids go in the system. Just that contribution alone, we probably would not be able to put a dollar amount on it. So I want legislators to understand what caregivers are doing and for them to understand that these families should be their commitment and their priority.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And Angie, your final thoughts in terms of what you think legislators, states, and potential technical assistance centers could do to support the work of kinship providers?
Yeah, well, talking about just getting that baseline and collecting data. In Missouri, I feel like we know very little about our informal kinship caregivers. And, Cynthia really brought a good point out that we need to kind of define informal kinship caregivers in a way that makes sense and that is recognizable so that we can build policy and create systemic change so that we can have equitable access to the same supports and services for both formal and informal caregivers. And then, of course, we've heard it mentioned, but just that long-term sustainable funding so that both large and small programs can continue to provide those supports and services that we hear are needed.
Right. And I know just a final thought here is, also, there's funding across all of these agencies, these large kind of systems, be it the Department of Aging, child welfare, school systems, healthcare, and they're all touching kinship families. And so how do we kind of get out of those silos of funding and really think about this from a broader standpoint? Because we know that there's over 2.5 million children across the U.S. living with grandparents raising grandchildren. And so we know that touching all of these different types of services. And so how do we open up the door to, really some blended kinds of funding that really supports all families, those not just in the formal system, but as you mentioned, Angie, those informally outside the system, because we don't want them to enter into the formal foster care system, and families can do the work with just a little bit of support. And that's where the small non-for-profits and the large non-for-profits can really create such a good preventative structure to really support families to be successful. And when they get that support, the kids are going to do well. Their well-being is going to be great. The support that caregivers get is going to improve their well-being as well, because again, they're suffering in a number of ways, but there's so much out there that can be done. But thank you guys so much for your input today. It's been a wonderful discussion. You guys did awesome. And I think for folks listening to our discussion, I think there's a lot of wonderful takeaways. And I really appreciate your participation today. So thank you guys so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is China A. Phillips, and I'm with the Sisters of Charity Foundation in South Carolina. It is my joy to introduce our speaker today, Miss Felicia Sanders. She was born in Charleston, South Carolina, to William and Minnie Terry, where she attended Charleston area schools. She is married to Tyrone Sanders and has 3 children and 4 beautiful grandchildren. Miss Felicia worked as a licensed barber, cosmetologist, and esthetician for over 30 years, but made the decision to retire after tragedy met her at Mother Emanuel AME Church. On June 17, 2015, Miss Felicia was at a Bible study along with 11 others, including her son, aunt, and then 11-year-old granddaughter. The nation paused as the realities of racial harm and violence took Black bodies and bruised our collective core. Tragically, her son, aunt, and 7 others died. Since that fatal day, Miss Felicia has been working on healing, caring for her granddaughter, and bonding with her new church family. She has also been traveling around the country and abroad, speaking about various topics related to the shooting at Emanuel AME, changing gun laws, and the need for change among the hearts of people so that these types of acts will not happen again. Kinship caregivers all around the world have always been a beacon of hope. I would like to introduce you to our South Carolina beacon of hope, Miss Felicia Sanders, our speaker today. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Felicia Sanders from Charleston, South Carolina. I'm so happy to be with you tonight. 2015, the year of the Emanuel Massacre shooting, I got full custody of my granddaughter. And the reason why I got full custody of her because we both are survivors of the mass shooting at Emanuel AME Church in downtown Charleston. And I figured that no one can understand her like I can. So the years before that, I would get her every weekend, every holiday, and just kept her with me. I raised my oldest grand, so I figure I can help my granddaughter. Well, with that came a lot of therapy. Her and I was going through therapy, And I figure that no one, absolutely no one, can take care of her better than I can. So what we did, we went through life in a maze, actually, because either one of us knew what we was doing. And we took her to a therapist, and there was no help. There was no help. I got stories that Charleston was not ready for the mass shooting. I got stories that she's doing what every other child does. I got stories that she needed medication. They would just give her medication without even seeing her. So I became an advocate because I felt that she didn't need the one size fit all therapy. So me and a team of other people got together and we started advocating for her. It wasn't easy. Therapy for a child is not easy. Parents need to get in and pay attention to everything they do. I would take her to the therapist and she would say something, and then I would also tell them what I start observing. And it started with hoarding. Hoarding is the start of a lot of mental illness, but you have to pay attention to it. When I would go tell the therapist that she's hoarding, the therapist would tell me, "Oh no, she's just not cleaning her room." I said, "No, it's a difference between not cleaning your room and hoarding." So what I started doing, I started documenting everything, and after I started documenting everything and taking it to the therapist, we switched therapists, must be 6 or 7 times to find our right fit. Finally, through therapy and talking to other people, we finally found her the right therapist. I had to send her away from Charleston to get it though. It cost me $98,000, but it was $98,000 that was well worth it. I didn't have it. My husband worried about us getting the money. We didn't have it, but my husband continued to work. We put every penny we had into her therapy. Now she's a college student. It's about 12 of us stick with her like glue to try to keep her moving forward. It's not easy. She have a lot of downtime that she gets depressed, and that's natural because I get depressed also. So I understand when she's depressed. I didn't have time to grieve because I had to be an advocate for my granddaughter. Um, it's hard. It's very hard. But you have to let the child know that you are there for them. You are there for them. You have to stick. Sometimes I would go in the corner and just feel like I want to scream. Sometimes I would want to give up. But I can give up because I know she needed me. Being a parent to a child who's going through the teenage years and through trauma, you can imagine. Anybody can imagine. It was a lot. My husband was grieving his own way. My granddaughter was grieving her own way. And hear me, everybody comes to me for answers. And so I had to put a lot of things behind me just to keep us moving forward. God played a big role in what we was going through because that's all I had to lean on. That's the only person I had to lean on. My family is very close. My immediate family, we are very close. So they help me a lot. They help us a lot. Um, when tragedy happens, you have no one. Before tragedy happens, you have everybody. Everybody is in your corner. But when tragedy happens, it seems like your crowd gets smaller and smaller each time. So you become upset. You become very, 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 very upset with the people that you thought would be in your corner. But then once you realize that I still have to get up in the morning. I still have to take this child to school. I still have to be there. I still have to maintain whatever I have going on so that she wouldn't see me fall apart. It has been tremendous amount of hurt with the rebellion that I went through with her, with the I went through the rebellious stage with her. I went through some disrespect with her. I went through some just trying to be known, but be known in the wrong way. And it was just a lot. It was just a lot. Right now, today, even though it's been 7 years since the tragedy, we still living in 2015 when it happened. We still haven't moved that far ahead. Sometimes you take 3 steps forward, but you take 8 steps backwards. So it's always going back to 2015, pushing your way through the years. This has been 7 years, but it has been good years, bad years, years that you wish sometime would just go away, but sometimes you want some of it to stay. What I've been doing since 2015, I've been working on my son. My son died in the church, Tawanza Sanders. Right now, we started a foundation in his name, Tawanza Sanders Legacy Foundation. So I've been putting a lot of my energy into that. We started doing an entrepreneurial camp where we teach children how to start business from zero to a business. So I've been getting my joy out of being around other children. My granddaughter age, my son age, I've been getting my joy in fulfilling some of my son's dreams. My son died at 26 years old, but at 26 years old, he had already lived a full life. At 26 years, he had already instilled in my granddaughter a lot of the values that she needs to grow on. So she was rebellious of some of the things that he wanted her to do, and some of what he wanted her to become. She realized that she can show him that she was going to be a senior in high school. She can show him that I'm going to prom. She can show him that I'm going to make it. So she got rebellious about that. It has been a lot that we go through that, and I'm still going through it. I talk to her every day. I call her every day. I have to talk to her about her attitude. Don't get upset when somebody tell you no. Don't get upset when you can't do what you want to do. Try to keep smiling. When you get down, please go to somebody and let them know you're down. Don't get to the place where you get too far out and cannot be pulled back in. So these are the things that I talk to her about every single day. And sometimes she said, "Granny, I know what you're talking about. You don't have to say again." I say, "I have to tell you every day that you got to ask for help before you need help, because you can feel when it's coming on. You know when your depression is setting in. You know when you need to take your medicine and you have skipped medicine a day after day after day." So I have to remind her these things every day to do, and I have to remind her that you have a village. You have a lot of people that's going to help you. You have a lot of people that want to help you. You have a lot of people that really love you. So with me raising my other kids, they know that I love them, but with her, a whole lot of other things. I have to prove myself to her that I'm going to be there. I sent her away to college, and I sent her a good distance from me because my mom died when I was 12 years old. And I know how much she depends on me. So I want her to learn how to live without me. Not saying that I'm going anywhere, because I'm not planning on going anywhere, but I want her to know how to survive without me being around her to correct her every single step. I want her to know what it's like to grow up and be a young adult, and I can do this on my own. So that was my reason for sending her a good distance from me, so that she can say, "Oh, I don't have to ask Granny, can I go anywhere? I'm going to just go out and I'm going to be back in by 9 o'clock. I'm going to be back in by 10 o'clock." That might not happen, but that's what I'm hoping. Um, my granddaughter, she is a beautiful girl. But mental health causes you to think that your self esteem, that you don't fit in where you need to be. One of the things that she said to me, and one of the young ladies that went with me to put her in school, "I don't feel like I belong here." And we had to talk to her, let her know that she belongs there. If she didn't, she wouldn't be able to go to the school she's going to. So plays mental health help mental health actually tap dance on your brain continuously. You have a lot of lows. When you have highs, your highs are up there, but you have a lot of lows. And a lot of times people don't want to hear your problem. They ask you how you're doing, but they really don't want to hear. They really want you to say, "Oh, I'm doing good every single day." So I try not to. If they ask me how I'm doing, I just say I'm fine. Every day I'm fine, but every day I'm not. Every day she's not. So I'm really grandmother. I'm really parent, but I'm really her advocate. I'm really her advocate. I have documents about her from 2015 all the way up till now, and we have made lots of progress, but we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go. I worry about her constantly. I'm always worried about her constantly. I know she saw everything that I saw. So everything that I seen, I know that she saw. I'm afraid for her. I'm afraid the day that reality sets in and everything comes back to her full play. But I'm also optimistic that she's going to be fine. I pray for her every day. I pray for her constantly. I pray that even the village that I have around her doesn't ever portray her. I pray that they constantly be around her and she knows this is my to go person. Um, she's a smart girl, she's a beautiful girl, but she also not mentally strong. I don't want her to get in a position where she have to do things that she really don't want to do, but her self esteem is so low she doesn't know how to say no. So with that being said, it's a lot that we go through. It's a lot that we're going to go through. I'm praying that more black people get into mental health. For a long time, we hadn't been doing it. For a long time, we thought it was wrong to go seek mental health, but I actually like it. I actually like going to get mental therapy. I actually like the idea that I have somebody I can go pour it all out to and they're not biased about anything I say. I like the idea that I can go sit in front of them and I can be as vulnerable as ever could be. I can cry for an hour. I can do whatever I need to do for an hour and they not judgmental. With my granddaughter, she goes to therapy, and with her therapist, she will, if they buy everything she says, she likes them, and if they don't, I don't want to go back anymore. So I have to continuously tell her that everybody is not going to like what you're singing, and some people can see through everything that you're singing, and they're not going to agree with the foolishness. So that's one of the things that teenagers have to think about, that you're going to this therapist. She knows that you're dressing up the story. She knows that you are not doing some of the things you say you are doing. The therapist, whoever, man or woman, after they talk to you a long time, they know that you giving them just the watered down version of the story. And that's what my granddaughter doesn't like. Where her and I differ from, I give you the story raw. I give you the whole truth and nothing but the truth because I feel like that's the only way you can help me. But my husband being a grandfather, he doesn't feel like therapy is not for him. But I'm trying to get my people to learn that therapy work. You might not have the right therapist at first. Don't be ashamed to get up and let them know you're not coming back. You're going to the next therapist. You're going to find the fit for you. We need to work together. We need to pull together as people We need to give each other time. We need to give each other time. We need to be honest with one another. That's another thing we have a problem with, not being honest with one another. We all want everybody to like what we're saying, but everything we're saying is not going to be like. Um, One day I hope that I can introduce my granddaughter to some other young people, and I would like her to be able to tell her story. And I guarantee you she'll be helping somebody else. I always tell her, I say, your story can lift somebody else up. Ever since the shooting 2015 at Emmanuel AME Church, there has been continuous shootings every 3 months ever since. My heart bleeds for the other parents. My heart bleeds for the children who have to wake up in nightmares. Some of my stories with my granddaughter went after the shooting in 2015. She would want to sleep in bed with me and my husband. When we tell her she have to leave the room, I would wake up in the morning. She'd be sleeping on the floor, either by my bed or she'd be sleeping on the door right outside the bedroom. Then it went from there to the sofa, and then it went from there me trying to explain to her that you are developing now. You cannot sleep in the room with us. You have to go to your own room. So it was a lot of her trying to stick to me like glue. I went from the sofa to me trying to get her in her bedroom. She would probably stay in her bedroom an hour, and then after that, she would be right downstairs again. Then it got to her writing all over the walls. I allowed her to write all over her walls, and that was a way of me letting her express herself. Then we painted the wall, and we discovered we can do a chalk wall. So then we did a chalk wall in her room, and she was able to express herself that way. And I was able to go in there and read some of the things that she was expressing also. So that helped me with her therapy also. Other things was the hoarding, and we after we got the hoarding under control, it went to other things. So it has been a lot since 2015. Um, it's not easy. It's not meant to be easy. It's meant for you to pay attention, document everything. The only way you can get help, you have to be honest with who you are talking to. A lot of even with her being doing a lot of things she has done, a lot of people think that she's just a bad seed. A lot of people think that she just disrespectful, but I saw it as being this child need help. She need a lot of help. Now I got angry too. Don't think I've been just a smiling grandmother. I've got angry too, and I've had to do some things too that the world probably would look at and say she's being a mean person. But I'm okay being a mean person. I'm okay being that grandmother that um, doesn't want to put up with a lot of foolishness. I don't mind telling you no. You know, the Bible tells me, let my word be yea, let the no be no, and the yea be yea. So I try to live by that, and that's how I raise my children. That's how, and I explain to my daughter, these rules didn't come with you. These rules been in my house way before you came. But with all that being said, this has been a lot. It has been a lot. It has been tremendous. But I really do love my granddaughter. I love her with everything that I have. She knows it. I'm going to continuously tell her over and over and over again. And I hope that one day I'll be able to see her get married and go away and have her kids. And I pray that her mental health be good. I pray that she'll use what she's been through to help other children. Lord knows we need it nowadays.
Hello, my name is Beth Lindley. I'm the director of the Kinship Care Resource Center at Michigan State University. we're one of 5 community programs through the School of Social Work. And we, as of 2019, have begun the process of creating a Kinship Navigator program for the state of Michigan. I had the privilege of a conversation with Ron Browder in early 2020, which was a part of many opportunities to be introduced to other programs in development across the United States. And our conversation became one of recognizing that states manage child welfare differently, and that that kinship families have varying options available to them depending on the state that they live in. And overall, I believe in every situation there are challenges faced by kinship families when they are standing up to care for relative children whose parents are not able to care for them. So our intention in this project was to create a scorecard that we could create so that policymakers and elected officials and the leaders in every state across the US would be able to look at and measure the degree to which their policies are reflected in this particular scorecard. It would not be so much as casting judgment on any one particular state effort, but instead to offer some best practices according to what we've collectively identified as really important needs that exist for kinship families and the challenges that are faced by them. So we hope in the next year to have available a tool, this scorecard, which will identify very specific practice domains and will be able to demonstrate which states are doing which of those items. This is an excellent way for all of us to be in communication with one another, and it's very much also been informed by the voices of kinship families themselves. This is something that we're all very passionate about, and we appreciate the opportunity to come together and present this to you.
Hello, I am Dr. Valerie D. Jackson with Monarch Family Services. We are based in Houston, Texas. The Kinship Scorecard Group, which consists of representatives from 43 states and Washington, D.C., would like to thank program participants, sponsors, and attendees for joining us today. We would like to extend a special thank you to our partners, Cat Bro Limited, Buoyant Partners, and How About That? We are grateful for your contribution towards this initiative. Finally, be on the lookout for the release of the scorecard in the next few months. Again, we thank you for your support and have a great rest of the day.